But I think to wrap up, the best thing to bring up is like our lives. Like, what have we been through? What do we know? How are we toxic? And what does that mean about us?
Ooh, what does it say about me?
And I think our last guest can help us with that, with more honesty, because this is A.Bevy Radio. All we do is honest. So right now we want to bring to the stage Miss DeMonica McIver.
Hello. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Perfectly.
How are y'all? How's everything? This conversation has been like really, really good. I didn't know what to expect, but it's been really good. So
it's wild because at the end of the day, even when we started this live stream or podcast or whatever you want to call it, it's become like a therapy session.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be the guests or whoever watches it, our goal is for it to be therapy.
Mm-hmm.
We want to make therapy cool. We want to make self-awareness cool. And so you coming on out the gate, we want to ask you, how are you? Like, tell us about yourself. Tell us what you do as far as making people more self-aware.
So I am a mental health professional. So I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. And I work with families and children. And so what I do is really just try to look at relational dynamics and help people break those issues down. And I think parts of it are layers of mental health. And then what I'm learning, because 80 to 90% of my clients are people of color, is that a lot has to do with trauma. So I'm more of a cognitively based clinician. And so a lot of my focus is like realizing behaviors and thoughts and emotions. And I just really feel like having a light on self-awareness can, shift your relationship dynamics, shift your behaviors, and then get you the life that you want.
Shifts your life. Once you know why you do what you do, it shifts your life. But I just want to know, she said license.
Yeah. LISC.
Credentials.
SED.
Credentials. I just want to know that. Credentials.
The credentials.
Yeah. Well, really, Yaya, hats off to you because you were speaking all facts. Loved all of it.
I just be wanting to walk around and diagnose people. I just be wanting to let them know there's a reason. Like even you say, I'm just excited to learn more because you don't do things because you want to. Like an infant maybe, but even them, they learn stuff. So the fact that we're late 20s, about to be 30-somethings, I just want you to know that don't think you're that much of an individual. Something altered that behavior. You know what I'm saying? Especially when it comes to, like you said, trauma and toxicity.
Right. Yeah. Ooh. Absolutely. Yeah. I think something that stood out to me was a comment that Tony made. He said something about being the way he is, and it's not even about relationships. And that's absolutely false. Like people assume that when we say relationships, we mean romantic, but like the fact that we're humans, we're wired to connect. So something somewhere taught you about connection. And that's really that's what all of this is about. If you're not connecting, if you're not feeling like you're worth love or worth belonging, then something is miswired and then you have your toxic trait.
Ooh. And that's how you cook it up.
Yeah.
And that's how it's cooked. Point blank. I use the word abandonment a lot because I always think like, oh, you have abandonment issues. Oh, and in college, sounds really bad, but in college, she got daddy issues was like thrown around a lot, like it was immediate, like, oh, she got daddy issues. And I recently read something that said it's daddy issues, but it's not because it's a bad example. I've seen great examples, and now you're not adding up to it. Or the idea of, I don't want a man like my dad. I'm running. I end up with someone just like him. Again, unconscious decisions, like you said, belonging, connectivity. So I didn't even catch that with Tony. It is relationship based, point blank, period.
Yeah,
that's real. So I think with you, we want to dive into. You can interject however you want to, but I want to give you some personal stuff. And I think Ayat, she may, if not, we'll give you, you know, some questions and ideas. But just piggybacking off of Tony. I'm trying to get serious. It don't take too much. But as a young Black man, I'm 30, so I can't even say I'm young. But even the idea of like, okay, I'm grown now. I have to be grown now. I have to be mature. I have to have it all together. When we talk about toxicity, the idea that, you know, what we don't have together can affect somebody else. It has affected me to the point where it's like a second, triple, quadruple, you know, plus, like judge what I'm doing in life. Like I look at it and say, am I doing the right thing? And that's not even considering like what the world, as far as worldly things, are telling me what's right and what's wrong. Mm-hmm. So as a young Black man, not taken away from anybody else who experiences things, no matter what you identify yourself as, but growing up without a father, growing up with my grandfather, and then growing up around a lot of young men, a lot of younger men who were like experienced, and then growing up around a lot of old men who were like fugazi, who were like crazy and cheating on their wives and doing all this extra stuff. I grew up and it was like, okay, what is a man supposed to be? And so I asked you my first question, just off the top, like how does society play a part in the development of a Black male psyche when it comes to toxicity and maturity and being a good man and living a life of fulfillment? Like how does the world really even, it affects us in a certain way. So from your viewpoint, how does it?
That's a heavy question for the first one. Just want to let you know. It wouldn't be you if it wasn't that way. No, but on a more serious note, so just a quick little background. So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, but I sometimes say that that's a bit of a misnomer because we really just look at systems. And so that's really how I view all of my clients. You're a system within a system within a system. So when you think about the African American community and how a lot of fathers aren't present, you're already in a system that's broken, so to speak. You're missing a lot of role models, expectations, guidelines that you need. And then you layer on another system of society telling you what you should be. So what happens is you get conflicting messages in your head of what I should be, what I need to be. And then that challenges self-worth. And so that's how these ideas of toxicity exist. You have two conflicting, competing ideas of what you are. Yeah. And your community, Black men are great. We love them, but they're not here. They're not around. They didn't stay. They didn't support us. That's conflicting. Or and then
when they are there.
Right. And so, and then you have America thinking Black men are scary. They're no good. They're thugs. They're all of these things. So it's constantly conflicting messages. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I feel like a lot of times when I do see Black men, I don't know who I want to be. I don't know what do I model after? What do I look at? You know, I have a mom who was great, who taught me this, but she's a woman. Like, who helps me understand what I'm going through? And so it's like a constant battle of then needing to measure up and show I'm man enough, I'm strong enough, I'm brave enough. So again, back to self-worth. And I think that's like a large part from me and what I've seen when it comes to realizing what those traits are, your negative behaviors, is because your self-worth, you don't believe that you're worthy of whatever it is, fill in the blank, worthy of love, worthy of respect, worthy of whatever it is. So yeah, I kind of went off on a tangent.
What we got? Monica, cut your down.
Say it one more time, cut my volume down.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like that definitely makes so much more sense. And then you have the aspect of not even wanting to talk about just relationships, but then, like you said, you have this great mom who teaches you things, but then she also teaches you what women accept and don't accept.
Right.
The men that she brings around, whether occupationally, you either want to be like them or you're like, no, a woman shouldn't accept that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Right.
That keeps coming up of, do you split bills? Do you not split bills? Like all these ideologies, society is constantly telling you what to do as a person. Yeah. And then when Bryant says something, I always get on him. He said world views. I like to say American views, because a young Black man in Sudan is being taught totally different things versus a young Black man here. Then you have a young Black man in Europe is being taught totally different things than the person here. You know what I'm saying? Like those societies, those systems you talked about, you belong to so many different systems. But then I don't think that we know as individuals, there's no right way or wrong way of doing things. Mm-hmm. So we're constantly trying to figure out what's the perfect way I could be. Mm-hmm. Ryan, you look like you in deep thought.
I mean, that's what it is. I'm building a house, building a marriage, building a family, building a future. So it's at the end of the day, I'm looking at the things I've been through in my past and saying, how is it affecting? Because if I look at the definition we allotted, we're saying anything related to it caused by poison. So in that, as an aspect, as a mature man, you're saying what is poisonous from our past, how can I eliminate it? Anything that's harmful to a person's being, again, anything what I say, I do, how can I eliminate that so I don't harm anybody, specifically my wife, my family, and our surroundings, and anything that attempts to depreciate your value. And I think that third one is not just on the family aspect of like the wife or the house or the kids that's coming in the future, anything like that. It's like when it comes to depreciate your value, you look in the mirror and look at yourself. Like you can be toxic for yourself and say, what I've experienced in the past is making me look at myself as less than I can be. And so I think not just me at a certain level, I think there are other young men that are younger than me, older than me, who look at themselves and say, I'm less than because of the things that are around me. And so now you're being toxic to yourself. Mm-hmm. I don't know what to say to that. And so I'm glad you're here for that.
I have a question as far as it goes, because I feel like Black women have had a head start on mental health. Mm-hmm. We've had a more of a self-awareness, like a mirror to ourselves. And part of it goes to how society, like you hear all these things and then you get to see something I kind of joke around about, but not really, is I always said if I get pregnant with a son, I'm probably going to cry because it's scary. Yeah. No disrespect to any man in my life, but I've never seen a Black man raised perfectly from start to finish. I don't have a many Black male role models that I could be like, oh, if my son doesn't turn out just like they dad, there's this. Versus women, there are at least 30 women, if my daughter turns out like them, I'm perfectly fine. So when we think about that, how are the systems working against Black women as far as it goes, like mental health wise and their toxicity? Because we could be very toxic. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Black women toxicity, I don't want to blame us, but it affects men, whether it's mother to son, sister, brother, girlfriend, wife, whatever it is. I think all of that feeds into the toxicity. And then oftentimes these toxic ass men have daughters and all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, my daughter's a woman. So that means every woman in your life has failed. That's what I get from it. So like, how are these systems working against Black women and how we can try to unpack that?
Yeah. So if I think I'm hearing you correct, your question is, as Black women, we're advancing as it pertains to mental health and we're becoming more self-aware. Yeah. And how are we then experiencing barriers or challenges because of our foot ahead, so to speak, yeah. Right? So I think, honestly, I think it feeds into like the strong Black woman complex that we have to always have our stuff together. And we have to always be strong and be aware and check our behavior, check our thought. And I think that goes against self-awareness, to be honest. It goes against being vulnerable. It goes against, and I wouldn't even say eliminating, you said eliminating toxicity, but it goes against all of that. Because if you're trying to be self-aware so you can be better and be perfect and be put together, that's problematic, right? Because the point of it is not to eliminate it, it's to acknowledge it and say, hey, like my toxicity is in the room with me. How can I have a relationship with it so it doesn't impact me negatively and impact the people around me negatively? So I think, and I've had that issue myself. I feel like it just fuels you to want to be perfect. Like, oh, now that I know that this is my area of weakness and that I need to grow, what are all the action steps that I can do to then fix it? Instead of just sitting in it and saying like, this is me. This is something that I deal with. And how can I just be more compassionate and empathetic with myself?
I'm glad you said that. I've heard that a lot. I suffer from anxiety. And I've heard that a lot you can't get rid of anxiety. You need to be able to have a conversation with anxiety in the room with you. Like, okay, sis, we about to do this. I know you got backed up, but being able to have that conversation. So being able to have that conversation with toxicity instead of eliminating it. That's very powerful.
Yeah, because maybe that's your toxic trait, that you're anxious. I'm anxious too. So that takes me down a rabbit hole of all these things that's going on. Now I gotta accuse you or come at you, or now I have to be defensive to hold my position.
How to control it, like
right
the situation.
Exactly. But I just have to tell myself, like, I can't control the situation. I don't know what's going on. You slow yourself down and really just have more empathy and compassion for yourself. And I think that's what we need to look at as a people. Like, how can we empathize with one another? Yes. But like, I think the core for all of this, I think I already said it, is just vulnerability. That's the measure of toxicity for me. Your willingness to be vulnerable. Can you sit in that space with yourself? Can you sit in that space with your partner and be vulnerable? Because the moment that you aren't vulnerable, defenses go up. And all these different things happen. We're not getting into the problem. We're not getting to the core, and we're not making ourselves better.
Now you're reacting.
Yep.
I do have, like, when we talk about self-worth, as far as toxicity, when it comes to Black men and Black women, and this is something that I've been trying to do more research on. Black women, we measure our worth with accomplishments. That's why we're leading in education. We rack up degrees. Black men do, and it's like, what do Black men measure their self-worth? Is it women? Is it being desired? Because Black women, that whole strong Black woman, you immediately, not taking anything away, because, okay, if I get doctor in front of my name, y'all gonna hear it. But it's that we're measuring ourselves with like, oh, he cheated on me. Let me tell you how good I am. Like, let me look at my credentials. So that's how we measure our self-worth, which is sadly toxic. Because it's not about you as a person anymore. It's about what you bring to the table. Bryant, this could be for you too. Like, how do you feel like you struggle with like that whole self-worth? What do you measure yours with? How do you make other people feel? How secure? Because as Black men, you're told to be providers. You're told to be head of the household. Even in 2020. And I mean, not bringing races into it, but white men are not head of the household at certain tax brackets. That's not something that they're pushing onto them. If you're making you know what I'm saying? It's not constantly pushed on them. So for you, how do you feel like you as a person, or Black men as a whole, measure self-worth?
I mean, I think something me and my fiance talked about a couple of weeks ago was the idea of like words of affirmation, which came from the love language conversation. And I think even with me, not even talking to other guys, especially Black guys, minority guys, I think words of affirmation is heavy as far as men in general, because it kind of tells us that what we're doing is the right thing, because we come from a place where we don't know what the right thing is. I think even when what we talk about, like when A.Bevy started, like when A.Bevy started at USC, it was kind of like a flood of, here goes some shirts. And if you like the shirt, then we good. Like, and the shirts took over. Not even the idea of like what I've been through or whatever, but those shirts represented an affirmation that when I had like the change, progression, growth on it, when I had like the idea of, okay, we're trying to do something different. I don't know what I would do without the actions of other people confirming that what I believed in and what I sought after and what I wanted to do and what I saw as my future. I don't know what I would do if they didn't tell me in some action that it was the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And us creating an organization that's based off of self-awareness, like looking in the mirror and believing in yourself, I know that's contradicting. But at the same time, that's really the basis of it all. Like I let A.Bevy go until I did the Why Are You Alive tour.
Mm-hmm.
Stood in front of whether it be three individuals or 120 individuals, and they were like, "No, A.Bevy makes sense," and that's what took my life to the next level. When I got back in a relationship with my fiance, it was okay. So you do believe in me, so now we can go higher. And so I really don't even know what the other side looks like. I don't know if I answered your question, but I don't even know what the other side looks like as far as like.
But it's measured, and it sounds bad because it's for me, I struggle with that too. But like for you, your self-worth was still measured by other people.
Yeah.
Like it still was measured by other people's confirmation for you.
Definitely.
Yeah. We need to work on it.
Yeah. And we go deep now. I start crying here now.
Work on that. But I definitely, like, as a whole, toxicity, whether it affects other people or not, it could still exist. Like it could live in a room by itself. That's it. Like whether you hurt anybody in your life or whether you're in self-isolation in jail, if you toxic, like you still have to deal with those things. And I think a lot of times we deal with how it affects others. We deal with the damage it causes others. Oh, my mouth's slick. That's my toxic trait. Okay, I'll stop talking to people, but I'm still thinking those bad thoughts. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So dealing with it and how it harms us instead of how it harms others may be our first step.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And so with that, DeMonica, I think a question I have for you, outside of the fact that you might get a call for next week or, you know, or next month.
Because when we talk about trauma, honey, we need
tap into trauma. We let toxicity go for a little bit, but toxicity aligns into everything we're saying. So for you, we started off with the idea with the great Manar saying that we have some type of control. We definitely have some control over how toxicity affects us. So what advice would you give someone who first question, what advice would you give someone who recognizes that they're toxic themselves?
I mean, what advice would I give them? I don't know. I always feel like acknowledgement is the first step. Mm-hmm. So the fact that you can acknowledge that you're toxic, I think my advice would be to give yourself some grace. Like, I'm at level 1, you know, and I know that sounds really odd, but I don't think you should acknowledge it, jump in and say, okay, let me fix myself because I'm just so broken. Like, take a step, acknowledge it, and then be like, all right, I'm able to acknowledge it. What next? Next advice, get you a good therapist. That's why I'm here. Get you a good therapist. You've acknowledged it, get you a good therapist who can really unpack it with you and identify like how, like Ayat said, how it's impacting you, but your relationships. And then get some steps in place of what you need to not eliminate it, but to work with it. So yeah, those are the 2 things that I would say.
I do want to say a lot of times mental health, to me, like I want to use that example. It's not like when you get a cold, because when you get a cold, you can go to the store and buy your own medicine. Mm-hmm. It's cancer. Ooh, it don't have over-the-counter medicine for it. You have to go to the person who can be in charge of it. And that's something that it took me a long time before I went to therapy, because I was like, let me tell you what's wrong with me. Self-diagnosed. And then since I'm self-diagnosed, I'll try this and I'll try that. Kind of like, okay, I'm sneezing. Is it allergies? Let me buy some Zyrtec. Oh, it's not that. Let me go buy some Benadryl. Like it's not a cold that you can go to the store and just get what you want from it. Mm-hmm. It's cancer. It's a broken arm. You have to go to the special physician for that. Mm-hmm. Your mental health. You cannot. If you self-diagnose, good job, but you can't self-heal.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I like that. And I think too, you can't go to the store and just get a quick fix. Like, this is continuous, it's ongoing. And every stage of life that you hit, it might come up again, because this is a new stage. This is something different that I have to work through. And now my toxicity is coming back because I've lived with it, but now I have to deal with it now that I have kids, and I've never had kids before.
Let me hurt some feelings a little bit. She said it's not a quick fix, okay? Self-care Sunday won't solve it. Self-care Saturday won't solve it. Putting on a mask and loving on yourself won't solve it. It'll tame it. It'll definitely tame it. I'm guilty of that. I wake up Monday morning feeling, but like you said, another chapter or something else will happen and it'll flame back up.
Right.
Whew, that's it. Brian, what you got to say? He over there like, yeah.
I'm good, man. I got stuck in like the thought process of my last question. So I just appreciate DeMonica coming through. And I definitely want to see you back next week. Next week, we want to dive a little deeper into trauma as far as relationships, where it comes from. So we'll definitely be reaching out to you about that.
Sure.
Okay.
Other than that, I guess a question or just some advice, straight to the point, for someone in a relationship, in a world, when they look in the mirror, if they're dealing with a toxic behavior, when they're dealing with toxicity, what's some advice you can give someone who is like, it's from the outside and it's affecting them, and whether they know it or not? So
they have a toxic trait, but they don't realize it.
No, something on the outside is toxic. What's an advice you can give somebody who is dealing with that?
Outside things coming in.
That's toxic. Extra toxic. Real toxic.
Okay. Yeah. I think first, for me, and just kind of reflecting on like my clients and then just myself, is I think first you have to know your own worth and your own value, because the more you know that, you can block. It's going to still come through, but you can block it and filter it a little bit better. So I think you really have to look within and know your worth and your value and speak that on yourself. Like, I know this about me. This is what's true about DeMonica. And I'm not going to let the world change that. So that's what I would say. You have to know your worth. You have to know your values. But that could be hard. So if you don't know that, get you a good therapist who can help you get there. Who can help you get there, yeah. Because everybody may not know that. So that's first. And they're going to help you explore.
Thank you. I want to piggyback on that question, but make it a little bit more specific, because I feel like a lot of times we feel like the solution is remove yourself. I like your reiteration. You can't heal your parents. Okay? We can't. I mean, some of us can, but we can't. So when the toxicity is coming from someone that you love, that is a parent or someone in the household or a grandparent, how do you try not to absorb that?
Ooh, now I understand you better. Okay. So one thing that I teach my clients is like boundaries and being able to set and maintain boundaries. That's the biggest thing that I always teach my clients. And that's just because those people in your life are toxic, and it's easy to say cut them off. But if it's your parent or your sibling, you may not want to do that. So you have to form boundaries, and then you have to have a megaphone or a box to be able to say, these are my boundaries and this is how I'm maintaining them. And I think you made a good point of like, just because people have certain issues, they may not want to fix them.
Yeah.
So acknowledging like, this is how you are, and that's okay. But I cannot accept X, Y, Z. That's my boundary. So just know, if you come in the room and you're being negative, I'm going to remove myself. We can still have a relationship. I still love you. I still want to hang out, kick it, talk. But that's my boundary for me to protect my mental health.
Boundaries. That's what we have.
Boundaries.
Because that's my biggest thing. Is like, I know sometimes the person who's toxic to you, especially after going to therapy, you start unpacking stuff and it hits a roadblock because you can't cut off certain people. So, but just creating that boundary and saying, hey, I'm working on me. Even if you don't want to work on you.
Right.
Don't come in here. And you know what? Tabitha Brown says that so well.
Mm-hmm.
She says
I love her.
Well. So she says, have a great day. But even if you're not having a good one, don't you go messing up somebody else's. And I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Who we appreciate you.
Yeah. This was good. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We'll definitely be, in touch as far as whether it be something we can do live in the future whenever they come back around, or we're going to continue to give out this digital self-awareness, these digital lessons, this digital therapy. And we appreciate you for checking in with us.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Much love, DeMonica.
Woo.